Harry Capito, a Toronto lawyer, has spent most of his life defending the kinds of people many other lawyers try to avoid: Marxists, Trotskyites, homosexuals, the poor. If lawyers were allowed to advertise, Capito would probably put up a shingle saying, "Lawyer for the dispossessed." But not too long ago, Harry Capito found himself on the other side of the law, the wrong side. It happened after he made an uncomplimentary comment about judges and the police. This offended the legal authorities in Ontario, so Capito was charged and found guilty of a rare offense, scandalizing the court. It's a form of contempt of court, but Capito believes it's a violation of his right to free speech.
I've been a member of the CCF and NDP after it since about 1959.
Harry Capito is a lawyer who believes you can fight the system. And he does, every chance he gets.
Active supporter, and I've been a supporter of the labor movement in this country since that time, and I've been a socialist since that time, a radical, a Marxist, a person who seeks to have a fundamental social change in this country. And my views haven't changed an iota. If anything, they've deepened.
Give him a platform, and he'll give you his.
The judicial system in this country is systemically and institutionally biased in favor of protecting the police. It's also systematically and institutionally biased in favor of protecting capitalism, and in favor of treating black people unequally, and in favor of maintaining the oppression of women, and in favor of discriminating against young people, and in favor of discriminating against working people. And it's also institutionally biased, and it's also systemically biased against the poor and the dispossessed and tenants. On score after score after score after score, the judicial system is there to do the dirty work for the people who dominate this country, the elites that control it, specifically the economic elite. They do the little grinding that has to be done in order to keep things going. Of course, they often compromise. Of course, there are often victories of limited character, but basically they are there to maintain the status quo.
When did you start calling yourself a socialist, a revolutionary, a Marxist?
Well, 12 years old, yes, and I've been one since then.
Oh, you were a precocious kid?
You better believe it. I was a troublemaker from the word go. Right at the beginning, when I was in high school, I was fighting to lower milk prices, fighting against compulsory cadet training. I was established the first political club in Toronto High School. I even was able to get a kid reinstated in school after he was expelled because his hair was too long. I've always been against the establishment.
But now the establishment is against Harry Capito. He's been charged with an obscure form of contempt called scandalizing the court. A year ago, when Capito lost a case against the RCMP in small claims court, he told a reporter, "The decision stinks to high hell. The courts and the RCMP are sticking so close together, you'd think they were put together with crazy glue." Outside the courthouse last October, supporters demonstrated on behalf of Harry Capito and free speech. Inside, Mr. Justice Robert Montgomery found Capito guilty of scandalizing the court, claiming Capito's words were a vitriolic, unmitigated attack on all judges of all courts. Capito didn't start out to challenge the law of scandalizing the court. It was the RCMP he was after. This was just his latest unsuccessful court case against the Mounties. It started back in the 60s and early 70s. The radical left was on the march, and Harry Capito was right in the middle. The Mounties' so-called dirty tricks were commonplace, but largely unknown to the general public. Documents and letters surfaced at a convention of young socialists at this Toronto school. They were forgeries written by the RCMP as part of an operation called Checkmate. Their purpose? To cause dissent between Ontario and Quebec factions of the League for Socialist Action. The League was once headed by an unsuccessful Toronto mayoralty candidate, an outspoken, non-violent social revolutionary, Ross Dowson.
We identified very firmly as the Vietnam struggle and the protests against Canadian complicity, and we are active in the student movement. That's why the RCMP infiltrated our movement and planted their disruptive tactics in the youth movement.
When Mountie wrongdoings were made public at the Macdonald Commission of Inquiry, Dowson launched a $500,000 slander suit against the RCMP. The lawyer he chose already had a reputation for embracing radical causes. Harry Capito. You have been fighting on behalf of Ross Dowson for 8 years. You've been in court, what, 75 times?
That's right.
Have you been able to get anything from Mr. Dowson? An apology?
I've been able to get nothing from Mr. Dowson. When it came to taking on the RCMP over Operation Checkmate, the courts, as well as the politicians, presented a closed door. We couldn't even get an inch open.
The last door to slam was in small claims court. A judge found that the RCMP officers who forged the letters were performing their public duty, and therefore Capito was required to sue them within 6 months. He didn't, so he lost. But the truth is, you did not set out to change this law. You've been fighting in the courts for 8 years, and you didn't like the verdict, so you blew up.
Of course, what's wrong with speaking angrily? It's not against the law to be angry. Doesn't a lawyer have a right to be angry? Doesn't a lawyer have a right to feel passion for justice? I was talking about institutional and systematic bias in the courts in favor of the police.
Robert Martin believes you should be allowed to criticize the justice system. He's a professor of law at Western University in London, Ontario.
There's no definition of scandalizing. It is said, and nobody's very clear as to what this means, that you are guilty of scandalizing if you direct scurrilous abuse at the judges. Nobody knows what scurrilous abuse is. Scandalizing the court has never existed as a crime in the United States. It's still, in theory, a crime in England, but no one has been convicted for 60 years. People are still convicted in Canada. And probably more important than that, people are intimidated by the existence of this crime. Lawyers, journalists, the people who should be critical of the way justice is administered in this country are frightened into silence.
Doug Hunt is Ontario's Assistant Deputy Attorney General. His ministry was responsible for prosecuting Harry Capito. What is your opinion? You're a lawyer. Do you see this law of scandalizing the court as being antiquated, unnecessary?
Well, as far as it's being antiquated is concerned, I think that there is merit to reviewing it, possibly codifying it, making it as clear as possible. But I think there's a definite need for it.
Toronto lawyer Paul Copeland, like Harry Capito, often represents clients against the police. He believes Capito is in trouble not so much for what he said, but how he said it.
Everybody comes out of court at one time or another and says the judge was a jerk, the judge was biased, the judge was this, but people don't say it publicly very often. If he'd come out of court and said this is another example of systemic bias in favor of the police that we've seen throughout the history of this 8-year case where we've been trying to prosecute the Mounties for wrongdoing.
Lawyer talk.
Lawyer talk. Nobody would have said anything. Nobody would have done anything. Harry says they're stuck together like crazy glue, and all of a sudden everybody gets excited about it.
You proud of being a lawyer?
Of course, I'm in love with the law. I really try to live up to the expectations of my clients. I have a European concept of a lawyer that you're there really to serve instead of make yourself rich.
But you've said some terrible things about lawyers and about the profession.
That's because they don't live up to their own rules. Most lawyers are sycophants. They're mouthpieces for the system. They're afraid of standing up for their clients. They're a closed club. They're interested in making more money instead of representing their clients. And we'd all be a lot better if we had some more outspoken lawyers. No doubt about it.
I disapprove of what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. Voltaire said that, and a lot of lawyers are taking it to heart. They may disagree with Harry Capito, they may even dislike him, but they support the principle of free speech. Justice Montgomery thought Capito went too far when he said cops and courts are stuck together with crazy glue. He called it scandalizing and barred Capito from Ontario courtrooms until he apologizes. Harry Capito won't say I'm sorry.
I could do 30 days or 60 days, no problem at all. I'll probably pick up clients. This is the worst blow, the worst decision that could have been made.
Justice Montgomery's sentence against Harry Capito certainly goes to the very limits of his legal authority. I would argue, in fact, that given that we now have the charter, that sentence goes beyond his legal authority. It is a bullying, intimidating, oppressive law.
In his legal campaign against the RCMP, Capito has taken his case before Justices of the Peace, the Ontario Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court of Canada, even the United Nations. Along the way, Capito worked on Dowson's case with other lawyers equally committed to civil rights. One of them was Ian Scott. now Ontario's Attorney General. Last month, Scott was one of the speakers at the 25th anniversary dinner for Amnesty International. He listened as Amnesty's founder, Peter Benenson, said the reasoning used to convict Harry Capito is no different than the justification used in the Soviet Union for sending dissidents to jail. Ian Scott declined to be interviewed, but Doug Hunt from his ministry said the Attorney General had no choice but to uphold the law.
If it's open season on judges outside the courtroom, once there's been a decision that a lawyer doesn't like, what is the forum for the judge to rebut that? There's only two. One, he or she can go public and then debate the merits of the accusation in the press. In my view, totally inappropriate, something that would inevitably lead to a decline in the respect for the administration of justice. The second alternative is to launch a civil action. We have judges then on that model suing lawyers, possibly lawyers suing judges as a result, pardon me, of things that are said. In any case, a situation which is hardly going to promote the administration of justice and I think can seriously undermine it.
We can't constantly go. Law professor Robert Martin disagrees.
Judges are public servants. And in a democracy, then I think they, like any other public servants performing a public function, should be subject to criticism. If I say nasty, untrue, damaging things about you in public, then you can sue me for libel. And the judge is in the same position.
But a lot of people understand, too, that you have to have some rules, otherwise it'll be open season on judges.
Yes, you have to have rules, but you don't need this rule. You don't need a rule that puts one institution of society above all others and says you can't criticize that institution. If I had said what I had said about Parliament or hospitals or schools or any other institution, it wouldn't have been a crime.
This has become a public issue, and Capito has become a sought-after speaker. He's in the newspapers, on television, and a frequent guest on radio phone-in shows.
Why won't you apologize for what you said?
I'm not going to apologize in any way, shape, or form, no matter how it's dressed up. I'm out to challenge this law to do away with a law that belongs in the Middle Ages.
Let's find out what you think. Hello, this is Radio Noon.
Oh, hello. Yes, I would just like to say to Mr. Capito, bravo for having the courage to do what he did. It's about time some of those judges were told that they're no longer little tin gods that someone has to look up to.
All of the callers to this show, except two, supported Harry Capito.
Well, I think Mr. Capito, once again, as an officer of the court, has a duty to function within it. If anyone does, he does. I think that we have the best system in the world, and I think we want to keep it. We don't resort to mudslinging and anarchy. We work within the systems we have.
But Capito presents his best defense when challenged.
The courts will earn respect by making decisions that are accurate and that earn respect.
Accurate according to your position, your views. Who are you?
Sir, I may disagree with you, but I would never charge you with a criminal offense because I disagree with you and you express an opinion that I disagree with. Even if you expressed it in strong and hyperbolic language, I ask only the same from you to me.
Well, you talk about hyperbole. What are you doing? I've never heard such examples of hyperbole as I've heard from you.
It's still not a crime in Canada and shouldn't be, to use a metaphor, hyperbolic or otherwise.
Harry Capito has appealed the conviction. A defense committee has already raised several $1,000s to help pay his legal costs. Some of the financial support comes from sympathetic lawyers. Some of the moral support comes from the radical left.
Look unfamiliar. If you could just introduce yourself.
My name's Ron. I'm in the Bolshevik tendency. I was at the fundraising party for Harry. Yeah, I'm Tom, and I'm also from the Bolshevik tendency.
My name is Sue, and I'm a supporter of freedom of speech, I think. That's why I'm here.
I'm Harry Capito. I have the pleasure of playing the role of victim in this drama.
Admit it. You're having a good time and you have a platform.
Well, If you call having the threat of your job being taken away from you having a good time, then I guess I am having a good time. Look, I don't need to be charged in a criminal court. I would rather be fighting for my clients than sitting in a prisoner's box. I'm not having a good time.
How can you be suffering with all this publicity you're getting now?
Well, you know, I am glad after 8 years of being ignored that finally people are paying attention to the fact that the RCMP have received preferential treatment in the courts.
On November the 19th, New Democrat Sven Robinson stood to defend Harry Capito in the House of Commons.
Thank the honourable member. I call upon the Federal Attorney General to immediately grant a full pardon and vacate the conviction of Harry Capito, who has so courageously fought this battle on behalf of all Canadians against this unjust law. The scandal, Mr. Speaker, was in Harry Capito's conviction under this law.
For me, politics is the art of the necessary, not the possible. A man has got to do what a man has got to do, as that famous Marxist John Wayne used to say.
This day has been a small victory for Harry Capito. He won a stay of his sentence. He isn't saying he's sorry, but he will be able to appear in court as a lawyer until his appeal next March.
Would you sacrifice your career for this?
I would sacrifice my life for this. I lived my life for my ideals. That's the hard part. Giving up my life for my ideals, that's easy. There's nothing I wouldn't do in order to defend democracy.
If I may say, this has got to be very difficult for people close to you, your friends, the people who love you.
There's no question about it. The path I've chosen is a rocky and hilly one. It's lonely, and it takes a special kind of person to stand close by me. And it's hard on the people around me, but those people who care for me have learned to accept these faults.
Capito is separated from his wife, Sabina, but she still supports his cause and helps out on the defense committee.
Okay, I have things to show you and give you.
And the kids got involved too. They carried placards in support of their dad. Marching with the other demonstrators was 8-year-old Erica and 11-year-old brother Mark.
What about the kids?
The kids live their lives for themselves. Daddy is daddy. I don't try to influence them in any way, shape, or form. I encourage them to live their own lives and be entirely independent of me.
I don't want to be frivolous, but where does Harry Capito get his laughs?
Harry Capito loves to play chess. Harry Capito enjoys reading Archie comic books with his daughter Erica. Harry Capito likes to go tobogganing with Marky. Harry Capito likes to travel in Europe. And Harry Capito loves to go into court and argue for truth and justice and equality. I find there's a delicious irony in being a revolutionary in Bay Street wearing a necktie.
The Fifth Estate returns in 2 minutes.